thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
When one considers our dismal growth and our chronic and disturbing unemployment rate, you would think that policymakers don't appreciate the fact that growth is primarily driven by the private sector. Do you think there's a problem fundamentally there to start with?
I think most people are not thinking hard enough about the terrible state South Africa is in. We are in a desperate situation. Unemployment is growing, not declining.
Yeah.
And if you peer through all the words, in fact, we're in a worse situation today economically than we were in February 2018. But most people seem to think you can say, yes, I want the economy to grow, agreed, and now let me talk about a whole lot of other issues without understanding how without growth, this society cannot progress. Our democracy is at risk, social stability is at risk, and we will not deal with this terrible crisis of unemployment or start to improve the lives of 50% of the population who live in poverty today.
And through all of that, you see party posturing ahead of the elections. You make a strong point here about a party being anti-business, but at the same time trying to convey itself as being pro-growth. You can't have both titles, you argue.
Well, we're saying that the present government's approach has been pro-growth but anti-business, and that the president is starting to try to change that, but that voters should be asking their political parties before they decide how to vote what these political parties are going to do to actually change the environment in the country. So you can't attack business as vultures and thieves, or say that this is white monopoly capital, or keep going on at our existing firms. The truth is that South Africa's challenges will not be solved by attacking our existing firms. Our challenges will start to be improved and ultimately solved if we get lots and lots of new firms. So if you appreciate that, we're saying voters need to ask some tough questions to the political parties about growth issues. Is growth really a priority for that political party? And in what way? What will they stop doing in order to promote the growth, the investment, and the labor-intensive firms that we desperately need?
Have they been forthcoming with that? We often talk about those elements that would encourage investor sentiment. We're going through a very, very dark period now in terms of business confidence compared to where we were a couple of years ago. Are our political parties demonstrating that they understand what it will take to get investment to come over here? The last time we spoke was at the Job Summit. We've seen a multi-billion rands being fed our way. I want to know whether or not that indeed translates to economic growth and jobs.
Well, not so far.
Yeah.
Everybody, with the crisis in electricity and with the debates about undermining property rights, business confidence is in decline. So South Africa is not just staying stagnant, we're getting worse as an environment in which to invest. And this is in a context where somebody said to me today, oh, well, the global environment's not fantastic and you have to take that into account. Of course you do. But our competitor countries like us in Africa and in other parts of the world are doing much better than South Africa. So the bad news is we have made terrible policy choices, and we are making them as we speak. The good news is we can change this. It's in our control. And so the whole point of CDE's Agenda 2019 series is to say to the political parties, to journalists and to voters, next week is really important, and how you vote really matters. You should be pushing the politicians, now that they're wandering around your communities and looking for your vote, you should be pushing them to say, what are you going to do that's different? What are you going to do to make growth a much greater possibility? What are you going to do to encourage new firms? And we end our last question. The president last year said that in Sandton, he said at the investment conference that we should stop talking about white monopoly capital and we should stop attacking firms and that we should start a new debate with entrepreneurs as heroes. I think voters should ask each political party, do you agree with the president that entrepreneurs are heroes, and what do you think it means for policy?
Yeah. And part of that approach would be to actually, as you put in your last paper, create a framework for small business to prosper. What's been missing in our approach to small business, Anne?
Well, certainly not a lot of hot air.
Yeah.
So there's lots and lots of talk, but the truth is over the last decade we have 37,000 less small businesses than we did in 2008. Just think about that for a moment. So even though we've got a ministry and we've got this and that, at root cause, we have too many people who've had no understanding of business whatsoever, trying to tell businesses what to do or help other people start businesses. We should stop that. The state cannot create businesses. We should also stop regulating as much as we do. All sorts of regulations have to go, including some of the black empowerment regulations, which are not working. And we've got to listen to what small entrepreneurs are saying, because the fact of the matter is South Africa needs more and more small firms, and we need more of those small firms becoming medium or large firms, and we're not doing any of that. So I think a lot more listening is required and a lot less regulation. We have far too much regulation, which is very expensive, especially if you're a small firm. And we need a different attitude. We need to say we need more firms. So in cities, in provinces, and at national level, the people in charge of the economy should be saying, let's talk to our local business community. Let's hear what they have to say. And if we go back to where we started, we're not saying that being pro-business is crony capitalism. That's the last thing South Africa needs. We've seen how inefficient it is, how people steal from the poor and from all of us. That's not what we're saying. To be pro-business means you want a competitive market environment in which lots of businesses, more and more firms, are competing with each other to deliver goods and services as efficiently as possible. So it's a very different environment from the one that we have, where too many politicians, too many officials are suspicious of business, that employment equals exploitation. This is not true in most cases. And we have to stop attacking our firms and think much more about how we get more and more firms.
The anti-business rhetoric. Well, I know exactly what you're talking about. Anne, thanks very much indeed for coming in. Anne Bernstein of the Centre for Development and Enterprise.